What's happening, YouTube? I'm King.
I'm Angela.
We're here to talk about hard conversations. Let's dive in.
If you're in a relationship, there's a really good chance you just had a hard conversation, or that you need to have a hard conversation, or that you're about to have a hard conversation.
Avoidance is not the answer to this problem.
Well, there's two kinds of people. There is the person that wants to have a hard conversation about everything, and you're going to know about it, and they're not afraid to have a hard conversation.
And then there's the person that is shying away from every and anything frictional. They don't want any controversy whatsoever.
The important part is knowing who you are, because if you're hearing this message and you're the kind of person that likes to make a hard conversation, your strategy is to pipe the down. And if you're the kind of person that tends to shy away from conversations and you're like thinking things and you're feeling upset about things, but you're afraid to bring them up, then you need to pipe the up. So there's a different strategy in this one conversation, but it is so important in a healthy relationship that you have these hard conversations. And I know just in the time we've been together, that's one area I've really grown in with King, is being able to stay at the table and start to speak things that I normally would have just kept to myself, but then would have built into resentment.
And you have to foster a relationship for that. You have to be able to allow that person to rest in a place that I call a soft place to land, to not bring that judgment upon them, and to be a great listener, to ask additional questions to bring that person to the space. So stick around to the end of the video. We're definitely going to get you some solutions-oriented approaches
to show you how to create a safe space to even have these conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah. The main things that people should be having hard conversations about, and probably aren't, are things that are really close and vulnerable to us. So like our insecurities. Say your partner does something that makes you feel like insecure or uncertain. Threatened. We're most likely to say something snide about the behavior, like say they're scrolling on their phone. It's not the actual behavior that might bother you. Maybe you're insecure that they're looking at people more attractive than you on there, or that they're contacting people.
Or it's the ability to not know what they're doing. Curiosity is is one of those things where you wonder what's going on with that person. They're not communicating to you what's going on. So it creates this space of absenteeism. And you want to know why is that getting their attention versus the person.
Right. So that would be like an insecurity that probably would be maybe an uncomfortable conversation, but you should probably have that. Another thing would be money. That's something that there could be some friction or tension or misalignment of the two of your values, and things that bother you, but you're not having conversation.
Most relationships has a free spirit, and they're going to spend every moment freely whenever they want to. If somebody's selling it, they're buying it. And then you have a nerd who is trying to save every penny and trying to get to that financial goal. And without the two having great communication, nobody's happy.
So money is typically something people have a hard time in their hard conversations to stay in. Another one is sex, because that's you feel so vulnerable, and so your partner's doing something or not doing something that you really need or don't want them to do. Either way, it's a hard conversation.
It takes a space of security. It takes a space of safety for that person to continue to be open. Sex is a vulnerable place for people to get into. And the heart has to be satisfied in order for the body to be there and to be fully engaged. And you can tell when it's not.
Another one is physical image. Maybe our partner smells bad, or you don't like the way they dress, or something. Maybe they've let themselves go, or things that are kind of a turnoff to you that you're kind of biting your tongue and you don't want to bring up because you don't want to hurt their feelings. That's another hot topic that is a really important but a difficult conversation to have. The reason these conversations are hard is because we are afraid that our truth will hurt or offend somebody. But when you keep it inside, the damage is far worse on the back end, which is, say the damage is so much built up resentment that the relationship doesn't make it. Or so much, in the case of physical appearance, so much lack of attraction that you're not having sex anymore. But it would have just taken one really hard conversation of honesty, maybe to bring that person to a place of well, shoot, maybe there's something I can do about it. Working together to get that back rather than just avoiding them.
And the comparison is another thief of joy. Comparison is what I call the creative kryptonite. If you're consistently putting or having even periodic thoughts of comparing yourself to someone else, that damages your self-image. If you're comparing your partner, your spouse, to this other person, then you're comparing that person to what you see on a Photoshop image or something, or maybe even a reality photo of someone. But you have to be able to value your person for what they bring to the table, but in the same breath, you also have to be able to communicate those things in a non-threatening way, which we're going to get into later in the video, how to communicate these things if you find them challenging to do. Okay, here's a story for us, financial expectations. That was a hard conversation to get into. On the beach, midnight, past midnight. We should have been doing other stuff, but we're on the beach talking about financial expectations. What's expected of me? What's expected of her as we merge and transition our lives together?
That was not a fun conversation. And as a result, I got about 500 sand flea bites. It was horrible. That was my punishment for staying out there in the conversation. I didn't realize until the next morning when I had these backs of my legs were lit up, literally like 500 bites. These little things that live in tropical areas called no-see-ums or sand fleas.
Mm-hmm.
Nip, and you didn't get any.
I'm a force field, baby.
Oh my
it's
God.
because
you're stinky. No one wanted to bite you.
It's because I didn't have any hard conversations. I didn't have any hard conversations to bring to the table. Ultimately, in the end, it provided a place of clarity for us and knowing how to navigate the next season of our lives.
To his point of it's not hard for him, but it's hard for me. This early in the video, I mentioned there's two types. He definitely leads on the side of not being afraid of having hard conversations. And I'm on the side of like, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings or cause any tension. And I always think, okay, I can just deal with this myself.
Yeah, so she does bring me balance in that manner. You may ask or wonder, how did I get to this place of not being afraid to have hard conversations and being able to tell anyone almost anything? It is a place that I evolved into. As a young man in my 20s, I really didn't build a level of confidence to do this until I was about 30, early 30s. And at that particular time, I began to develop based on situations that were, let's say, thrusted upon me. And I believe that in life, there's a certain way that you navigate greatness. That's either you're born into it, it is something that you evolve into, or it's thrusted upon you and you have no choice but to adapt.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. He was not a confrontational person when he was younger, and now is completely comfortable, where I will have a much harder time having a conversation. And I will say that's one thing I've grown a lot, even in our time together, because there's a safe space for us to do that, which I think we can get into in a minute, is how to create that. So I've been growing in my ability to feel comfortable having really uncomfortable or hard conversations.
Let's share another example with you all, and that is her discomfort of being in my house.
So this was a hard conversation for me because I didn't want to offend him, but when I would come over, he would be like giving me these rules and regulations of his stuff in his house. Like, oh, don't touch that. This goes here. We do this. We don't do this. And I just was like, it doesn't even feel like I can sit down on something without asking permission. So that was a hard conversation. He says it's not hard for him, but it's hard for me because I didn't want to offend him or upset him, but I had to tell him how I felt being in his house.
Listen, I've been a single man for a minute, right? And nobody has been in my domain except for the children, okay? Not children, the children. The way my life went, it's just been a roller coaster that had me in the space of total independence. I command and control the entire domain in my environment, right? So I have super nice, right? I don't like things in certain places. I do like certain things. Everything has its place and every place has its thing. And now she comes in, she's putting dribblings of water everywhere. She's
everywhere. How about the sink? Okay, I used the sink and some water got on it, but we don't do that here. Oh no, and then I put my earrings in the wrong place.
On a glass nightstand.
Because your earrings go in the nightstand.
Well, they don't. They go in the jewelry component, the jewelry box. What else you do? So my Chanel throw from Z Gallery. She takes the Chanel throw. I was like, that ain't for cuddling.
Yeah, it was cold. No, that's what you use throws for.
You cuddle in the motherly, the Susie Homemaker blanket, not that blanket. That's for decor.
So anyway, it's funny to us now because we worked through it, obviously, having that hard conversation. But at the time, I was just like kind of shut down and like mopey and didn't know how to say this. I was feeling so irritated and attacked.
She does. She goes into this Ninja Turtle shell. Which Ninja Turtle are you?
I don't know, Leonardo.
Okay, Leonardo. She goes into her Leonardo turtle shell. Here's the thing. I encourage her to not go into that shell. Like, whatever's on your mind, you can tell me. I won't be offended, and I welcome you to share that.
So how do we help people create safe space?
It's letting that person know that I'm gonna be here with you, and I'm in this with you. Just because we're having a hard conversation does not mean that I value you less as a person, or that I love you any less.
Or that I'm gonna leave.
Right.
Right. Because that triggers our deepest fear. Like, they're frustrated, they're gonna leave.
I'm having the conversation because I want this to be better. I want this to be perfect. I want you to be able to be comfortable having that conversation.
One thing we talk a lot about in our relationship is like course correction. Like, you know, when an airplane is flying, if it deviates like 1 or 2% from the course, for a couple miles, that's not an issue. But the problem is a couple 100 miles, you're on a completely different course. So we always talk about how it's important to address things much, much earlier so you can quickly course correct and not lose your target, which is a healthy, loving, intimate relationship. So back to the 2 types of people. If you're the person who probably needs to err on the side of being quiet more often or toning things down, do you want to get some tips?
Yeah, let me jump into that because that's totally me.
Yeah.
One thing that really helps the ability for a person that is comfortable confronting a situation or a person is to be more in observation mode. Do not listen or answer to respond. Listen to the heart. Listen to the soul. And not only listen to the heart and listen to the soul when you reply, ask more clarifying questions.
Curiosity.
What exactly did that make you feel? Why? What do you think triggered that in your feeling? Is there something I can do to help you feel better about that? I really dislike it when your heart is bruised in such a manner. How can I make things better? That is reassurance for that person.
So if you're a person who is much more prone to be a confronter and have no problem with hard conversations, what can you do when you have a problem and you're going to bring it to someone's attention? What can you do to tone that down and make it safe?
I think first you can give it time.
Okay.
Like, nothing has to be, unless it's life or death, there's no need to have an immediate conversation. Like, right now we're having a state of emergency meeting. No, let it die. Let it go a day or 2 or 3, unless you feel that it's gonna compromise or jeopardize the relationship. So you go to breakfast 2 days later or the next day. 2 days ago when you did, fill in the blank, this is how it made me feel. And this is important, something I learned from her. This is when you get to that space of having that conversation with that person, you can say, I'm not saying you made me feel this way, but this is how the situation made me feel. And you share how it is that you felt. And after you're done expressing that, if your person has any kind of heart, any type of emotion in their body, they're gonna hear you, they're gonna understand you, and they're gonna come back with something that helps to aid your heart in healing, aid clarity, and promote more of that in your relationship.
I think that's so important that you own that you're the one that's triggered. Like, you're the one having the problem, not them. So say they did something you didn't like, it's your problem. And so when you approach it that way, and that was really important, and it took us a couple conversations for you to get it. Like, I wasn't blaming you for something.
Yeah.
I was saying, this is how I feel, and I'm taking ownership. This is my trigger, and I felt this way when this happened. And at first you would get defensive.
I would, because I felt like if I'm
got
anywhere in the equation, that I have something to do with it. Like, I'm partially at fault. Because if I wasn't here, you wouldn't be having this situation.
Right. So it's important to own that it's your feeling. They didn't make you feel a certain way. Yes, maybe some of their behaviors triggered your feelings, but they're still your feelings.
And your triggers and your feelings,
are yours too.
Those are your experiences. We're all a sum of our experiences. We've talked and we continue to talk about, this is what I'm feeling, and this is why I'm feeling this way. And many times we definitely offer up that it is because of something in our past that we've dealt with, that we've experienced, or someone that, it could have been a similar situation.
All right.
But we're a sum of all of our experiences.
The second thing, after you take ownership, that like, this is how I feel. The person so you're the one with the problem, right? Or he's the one with the problem coming to me. Is his feelings. The one who's listening, who's the offender, or who you have a problem with, the best thing for them to do, and we talk about this as we're getting better at it, is to listen to the heart need. So if someone's like, this is a trivial example, but say they're saying something about you spending time on their phone and they want to spend time with you. It's real easy to start to defend why you were on your phone. Mm-hmm. Well, I haven't been on it all day. I was only on for 5 minutes. Gosh, what do you want from me? It's easy to talk about the thing, but if you listen to the heart need underneath that, it's the need for connection. It's the want to feel attention. So if you can speak, and we're getting better at this, going right to the heart need. Like, mm-hmm. The heart need is I felt rejected. The heart need is I didn't feel important. The heart need is I felt insecure. Whatever that is, and if that person can you don't need to defend yourself. You don't need to do anything, but just in the moment be like, I'm sorry you felt rejected. Or if they didn't feel loved, I'm sorry you didn't feel loved. I love you so much. Or I'm sorry you felt rejected. You are the most important thing to my life and I want you. Whatever that is, if you can speak, forget the defenses, forget the need to rationalize or justify your behavior and go right to like, what does that person actually want? Underneath their all the feelings that they have, or maybe the complaint that they're presenting, or what is it that they actually need to hear from you?
And though you're not a mind reader, you do not go to that person. Do not go to that person and say, what is really your heart need? Like, you should be in tune enough to be able to speak to that person, not to exactly know that heart need, but to ask the questions to get to that heart need. The other thing is, don't let it be repetitive. Whatever it is that you're offending or that you're trying to resolve in that relationship, saying the same thing over and over and over again, no matter how sweet it is, that is not a formula for success. So if you say, I'm sorry, baby, I really didn't mean to do it. I promise to do better, and you're the queen of my life. That's great for one time.
Maybe twice. Maybe twice. Third time's not a charm.
You better bring some variety, and moreover, you better mean what you say. Because the ultimate statements, the ultimate thing is the action. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares about what you say, it's about what you do.
Mm-hmm. There should always be a feeling of growth. Are we getting better at this? Are we staying the same? Are we getting worse? Most things are either in a state of growth or a state of death. You don't find things just maintaining. Like, at every moment, even now, you're either moving towards thriving or towards dying. If you haven't eaten in 12 hours and you're dehydrated, you're in a state of decline. So if you should be feeling a sense in your relationship that you're either getting better or making efforts at growing and getting better at it. And if not, hopefully some of these tips have helped you.
If you can relate to any of this, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, send this to somebody that needs it.
I would also love to hear, what are some hard conversations that you feel like you need to have and maybe you haven't been saying? Are you afraid to bring this up?
Are you even afraid to put it down below? I double dare you. I dare you to put it below. You're probably afraid to put it up. They're probably so hesitant to have the hard conversation, they don't even want to put it on this channel. Don't even want to drop it below.
We'll pick the dirtiest one and then we'll help you through that next time.
Yeah, we
That'll
will.
be fun.
Yeah.
So in closing, the hard conversations are so important, because if you don't pull out the weeds when they're little, they're going to go to giant trees and totally overtake your relationship.
And they're going to choke out all the good things.
Yeah.
It's just like a garden, right? If you don't take care of the weeds, they will take all of your vegetables, fruit, herbs, everything out of the garden. It will just choke the life out of it.
So if you remember, if you're an overly comfortable person with hard conversations and you tend to go after them a lot, back down. If you're somebody who's afraid of them, like I am, you got to learn to...
Like you were.
Like I was.
You're
getting better. You got to learn to be able to speak your truth, because the long-term effects are like resentment and shutdown and withdrawal and disconnection.
Sometimes it's about having the confidence that this is going to work. So as you go forward with your hard conversations, feel confident that you're bringing this up for a purpose. Feel confident that you're going to get an amazing result, and feel confident that you can lead this over and over and over again, because you're a leader, whether you realize it or not.
You speaking to the men?
Speaking to
Ladies
everybody.
ladies aren't supposed to lead the relationship.
A lady may have the opportunity to have the hard conversation with her kids.
Oh, to lead
She
a
may have
conversation.
a conversation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she may have
to
to
lead the
have the
conversation.
hard conversation with her coworkers. She may have to have some of her hard conversation with some of her bitty friends that she need to cut off because
what you're saying.
they're not in a thriving place, and she's finally got a good place that she wants to elevate in. Yeah.
And the last piece as far as safety, so we talked about taking ownership of your feelings. We talked about waiting, not having to like blast it out right away. And we talked about trying to speak to the heart need of that person. What is it that they're really after underneath the initial surface? Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Speak to the heart need, ladies and gentlemen. That is it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you found any value in this video, give us a thumbs up. We'll see you in the next video.